Question 1. Examination of the data shows an email has been received by the African University College of Communications Department from a faculty member detailing significant changes to an upcoming admissions requirement for a popular program. The faculty member requests immediate public announcement to inform prospective applicants. Which of the following represents the most responsible and ethically sound course of action for the communications department? Option A. Hold off on any announcement until the next scheduled university newsletter, as the changes might be subject to further review. Option B. Contact the relevant academic department head or program coordinator to verify the details and confirm the official status of the proposed changes before preparing any communication. Option C. Immediately draft and release a public announcement based on the faculty member's email to ensure timely notification of prospective applicants. Option D. Forward the faculty member's email directly to the admissions office for their review and subsequent action. The correct answer is C. Immediately draft and release a public announcement based on the faculty member's email to ensure timely notification of prospective applicants. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for timely communication with the ethical obligation to ensure accuracy and prevent the dissemination of potentially misleading information. The communications department, as the gatekeeper of official university messages, must exercise careful judgment to uphold the institution's reputation and adhere to established communication protocols. The correct approach involves verifying the accuracy of the information with the relevant academic department before releasing any public statement. This aligns with the core principles of responsible communication, which prioritize truthfulness and factual accuracy. Specifically, within the context of a university's communication framework, this approach ensures that official statements are grounded in verified facts, thereby maintaining credibility with students, faculty, prospective applicants, and the wider public. It prevents the premature release of unconfirmed details that could lead to confusion, disappointment, or reputational damage for African University College of Communications. An incorrect approach would be to immediately release the information based on the initial email without independent verification. This fails to uphold the ethical duty of accuracy and could lead to the spread of misinformation. Such an action would bypass established internal checks and balances designed to ensure the integrity of university communications, potentially violating internal guidelines for information dissemination and damaging the trust placed in the communications department. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the email entirely, assuming it is not significant enough for public announcement. This demonstrates a failure to assess the potential impact of information and to follow through on due diligence. It neglects the responsibility to communicate important updates that may affect stakeholders, potentially leading to a lack of transparency and a perception of unresponsiveness from the university. A third incorrect approach would be to forward the email directly to prospective students without any review or context. This abdicates the responsibility of the communications department to curate and present information appropriately. It bypasses the necessary editorial process and could expose the university to liability if the information is inaccurate or incomplete, failing to act as a responsible intermediary. Professionals in university communications should employ a decision-making framework that includes 1. Information assessment. Understand the source, nature, and potential impact of the information. 2. Verification. Independently confirm the accuracy and completeness of the information with the originating department or relevant authority. 3. Risk evaluation. Assess the potential consequences of releasing or withholding the information. 4. Protocol adherence. Ensure all actions align with established university communication policies and ethical guidelines. 5. Stakeholder consideration. Evaluate how the communication will affect different university stakeholders. Question 2. Assessment of a scenario where an applicant for the African University College of Communications entrance exam submits an essay that bears striking similarities to published material found online, raising concerns about potential plagiarism. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Advise the applicant that their submission appears to be plagiarized and allow them to resubmit a new essay without any formal review of the initial submission. Option B. Initiate the university's formal academic integrity investigation process to determine if plagiarism has occurred and take appropriate action based on the findings. Option C. Overlook the similarities, assuming the applicant may have been influenced by the material but not directly copied it, and proceed with the application evaluation. Option D. Immediately disqualify the applicant from the entrance exam based on the suspicion of plagiarism without further investigation. The correct answer is B. Initiate the university's formal academic integrity investigation process to determine if plagiarism has occurred and take appropriate action based on the findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The African University College of Communications entrance exam regulations strictly prohibit plagiarism and require all submitted work to be original. Misrepresenting another's work as one's own is a direct violation of these regulations, undermining the fairness of the entrance process and the value of the qualifications awarded by the institution. Careful judgment is required to identify and address such violations appropriately, ensuring a level playing field for all applicants. The correct approach involves recognizing the submitted work as potentially plagiarized and initiating the university's established procedure for investigating academic misconduct. This procedure typically involves a review by an academic integrity committee or designated faculty members who can assess the evidence of plagiarism and determine the appropriate course of action, which may include disqualification from the entrance exam or other disciplinary measures, as outlined in the university's academic regulations. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant with the African University College of Communications entrance exam framework, as it upholds the principles of honesty, fairness, and academic rigor. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the suspected plagiarism and proceed with evaluating the student's application as if the work were original. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic integrity and creates an unfair advantage for the student who has engaged in academic dishonesty. It also risks admitting students who have demonstrated a lack of ethical conduct, potentially impacting the academic environment of the institution. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student without following the established investigation procedures. While the suspicion of plagiarism is serious, the university's regulations likely mandate a due process, including an opportunity for the student to respond to the allegations and for a formal review of the evidence. Arbitrary disqualification violates principles of fairness and due process. A further incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly and demand an explanation without involving the appropriate academic authorities. While direct communication can sometimes be useful, in matters of academic misconduct, it is crucial to follow the established protocols to ensure a fair and impartial investigation and to maintain the integrity of the disciplinary process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant university regulations regarding academic integrity and entrance examinations. When faced with suspected misconduct, professionals should 1. Document all observations and evidence meticulously. 2. Consult the university's official policies and procedures for handling academic dishonesty. 3. Report the suspected violation to the designated authority or committee responsible for academic integrity. 4. Cooperate fully with any subsequent investigation, providing all necessary information and adhering to the established process. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are made fairly, ethically, and in accordance with the regulatory framework. Question 3. Which approach would be most appropriate for evaluating an applicant's submission for the African University College of Communications entrance exam, considering the exam's objective to assess communication aptitude and potential for study in the field? Option A. An evaluation heavily influenced by personal anecdotes and informal feedback gathered about the applicant's character. Option B. An assessment based on the applicant's perceived social skills and how well they might integrate into the university's student community. Option C. A primary reliance on the applicant's previous academic scores from secondary education, assuming these are the best indicators of future success. Option D. A comprehensive review of the applicant's submitted materials, focusing on their alignment with the stated assessment criteria for the African University College of Communications entrance exam. The correct answer is D. A comprehensive review of the applicant's submitted materials, focusing on their alignment with the stated assessment criteria for the African University College of Communications entrance exam. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess applicants based on their potential, while adhering to the specific guidelines of the African University College of Communications entrance exam. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the exam's stated objectives and assessment criteria without introducing bias or compromising the validity of the evaluation process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen approach accurately reflects the applicant's suitability for the program as intended by the exam designers. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the applicant's submitted materials, focusing on their alignment with the stated assessment criteria for the African University College of Communications entrance exam. This approach is right because it directly addresses the exam's purpose, to evaluate an applicant's readiness for communication studies. By analyzing the applicant's work against the specific requirements and desired outcomes outlined for the exam, the assessment remains objective and directly relevant to the program's goals. This aligns with the implicit regulatory framework of any entrance examination, which mandates fair and accurate assessment based on predefined standards. An approach that solely focuses on the applicant's previous academic scores without considering the qualitative aspects of their communication aptitude, as assessed by the entrance exam, is incorrect. This fails to adhere to the spirit and likely explicit guidelines of a specialized communications entrance exam, which would prioritize demonstrated communication skills and potential over purely quantitative metrics. Such a failure would be a regulatory breach by not fulfilling the exam's intended assessment scope. An approach that prioritizes the applicant's perceived fit with the university's social environment over their academic and communication capabilities is also incorrect. This introduces subjective bias and deviates from the exam's purpose of assessing academic and professional suitability for a communications program. This would be an ethical failure, as it compromises the fairness and impartiality expected in an entrance examination process. An approach that relies heavily on anecdotal evidence or personal recommendations, not directly tied to the applicant's performance on the entrance exam, is incorrect. While recommendations can be supplementary, the primary assessment must be based on the applicant's demonstrated abilities as measured by the exam itself. This approach risks introducing unverified information and diluting the objective assessment mandated by the exam's framework. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves first thoroughly understanding the specific objectives and assessment criteria of the entrance examination. Professionals must then critically evaluate each applicant's submission against these criteria, ensuring objectivity and fairness. When faced with ambiguity, it is crucial to consult the official examination guidelines or seek clarification from the examination board to ensure adherence to the regulatory framework. The focus should always be on the applicant's demonstrated potential and suitability for the program as defined by the examination's design. Question 4. Implementation of a fair and transparent process for addressing allegations of cheating during the African University College of Communications entrance examination, considering the university's commitment to academic integrity and the rights of the applicant. Option A. Impose a severe penalty on the applicant without a formal hearing, based on the assumption of guilt. Option B. Immediately disqualify the applicant based on the initial report of cheating without further inquiry. Option C. Overlook the allegation due to the high volume of applications and the need to expedite the admissions process. Option D. Conduct a thorough investigation into the alleged cheating, gathering all relevant evidence, allowing the applicant to present their side of the story, and making a decision based on established AUC examination regulations and policies. Correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough investigation into the alleged cheating, gathering all relevant evidence, allowing the applicant to present their side of the story, and making a decision based on established AUC examination regulations and policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address potential misconduct in a fair and transparent manner, all within the specific regulatory framework of the African University College of Communications, AUC, entrance exam guidelines. The pressure to admit qualified students while upholding standards necessitates careful judgment. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres strictly to the AUC established procedures for handling suspected academic dishonesty during entrance exams. This means gathering all available evidence, providing the candidate with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based solely on the findings and the university's stated policies. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it upholds the principles of natural justice, ensuring the candidate is treated fairly and that decisions are evidence-based, thereby protecting the integrity of the admissions process as mandated by AUC examination regulations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the candidate based on a single witness's uncorroborated statement without further investigation. This fails to meet the standard of due process required by ethical academic governance and likely violates AUC internal disciplinary procedures, which would typically mandate a formal inquiry. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegation altogether due to time constraints or a desire to avoid conflict. This constitutes a dereliction of duty, undermining the credibility of the entrance exam and potentially admitting a candidate who gained an unfair advantage, which is a direct contravention of the AUC commitment to meritocratic admissions. A third incorrect approach would be to apply a penalty that is disproportionate to the alleged offense, such as permanent expulsion from all future AUC admissions without a proper hearing. This lacks proportionality and fairness, again deviating from established AUC disciplinary guidelines. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and procedures, fairness to the individual, and the integrity of the institution. This involves a systematic process of evidence gathering, impartial assessment, and transparent communication, ensuring that any action taken is justifiable and aligns with the regulatory and ethical standards of the African University College of Communications. Question 5. The efficiency study reveals that a senior administrator's relative has applied for admission to a highly competitive program at the African University College of Communications (AUC). While the applicant's qualifications are strong, the study also flags a potential for undue influence due to the administrator's position. Which of the following is the most appropriate course of action for the AUC Admissions Committee? Strictly adhering to the university's internal policies and Ghanaian educational guidelines on fair admissions. Option A. Proceed with the admission of the applicant as planned, assuming the administrator's influence will not impact the decision, and inform the administrator of the efficiency study's findings without taking further action. Option B. Publicly announce that the applicant's file will be subject to heightened scrutiny due to the familial connection, potentially creating undue pressure and compromising the confidentiality of the admissions process. Option C. Initiate a confidential, independent review of the applicant's file by a committee not associated with the senior administrator, ensuring all admissions criteria are applied impartially and documented thoroughly, with a specific focus on verifying the applicant's qualifications against stated benchmarks without regard to their familial connection. Option D. Immediately reject the applicant's application based on the potential for conflict of interest, to avoid any appearance of impropriety, regardless of the applicant's academic merit. The correct answer is C. Initiate a confidential, independent review of the applicant's file by a committee not associated with the senior administrator, ensuring all admissions criteria are applied impartially and documented thoroughly, with a specific focus on verifying the applicant's qualifications against stated benchmarks without regard to their familial connection. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a potential conflict of interest within the African University College of Communications (AUC) admissions department. The scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the integrity of the admissions process with the need to address potential favoritism or bias, all while adhering to AUC-established ethical guidelines and regulatory framework for educational institutions in Ghana. A hasty or biased response could undermine trust in the university and lead to regulatory scrutiny. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation into the allegations, guided by AUC internal policies on academic integrity and conflict of interest, and potentially referencing relevant Ghanaian educational regulations concerning fair admissions practices. This approach prioritizes evidence-based decision-making and ensures that any actions taken are consistent with established procedures and ethical standards. It upholds the principle of fairness to all applicants and protects the reputation of AUC. An incorrect approach that involves immediately rejecting the applicant based on the unsubstantiated rumor would be ethically flawed. It violates the principle of due process and presumes guilt without investigation, which is contrary to principles of fairness and natural justice often embedded in institutional policies and broader Ghanaian legal frameworks governing fairness. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the findings of the efficiency study due to the perceived importance of the applicant's connections, represents a severe ethical failure. This would constitute a breach of AUK commitment to merit-based admissions and could be seen as a violation of regulations requiring transparency and accountability in educational institutions. It also creates a precedent for future misconduct and erodes institutional integrity. Professionals in similar situations should employ a structured decision-making process. 1. Acknowledge and document the concern raised by the efficiency study. 2. Initiate a confidential, impartial investigation according to AUK-established protocols. 3. Gather all relevant facts and evidence, ensuring all parties have an opportunity to respond. 4. Consult AUK policies on admissions, conflicts of interest, and academic integrity. 5. Make a decision based solely on the evidence and in accordance with AUK regulatory framework and ethical guidelines. 6. Document the decision-making process and the final outcome. Question 6. During the evaluation of applicant essays for the African University College of Communications entrance exam, which approach to discussing the representation of marginalized communities in media best reflects the ethical standards and academic rigor expected by the institution. Option A. Employing language that reinforces common stereotypes to make the discussion more relatable and accessible to a wider audience. Option B. Prioritizing factual accuracy, balanced perspectives, and avoiding generalizations or harmful stereotypes when discussing the portrayal of marginalized groups. Option C. Relying heavily on anecdotal evidence and personal opinions to illustrate the perceived negative impact of media portrayals without seeking broader context or verification. Option D. Focusing on the most dramatic or controversial aspects of media representation to generate interest and highlight perceived societal issues. The correct answer is B. Prioritizing factual accuracy, balanced perspectives, and avoiding generalizations or harmful stereotypes when discussing the portrayal of marginalized groups. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of communication and media ethics, as expected in an entrance examination for a specialized institution like the African University College of Communications. The challenge lies in identifying the approach that best aligns with ethical communication practices and the likely expectations of an academic institution focused on responsible media engagement. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between superficial understanding and a genuine grasp of ethical considerations in communication. The correct approach involves prioritizing accuracy, fairness, and the avoidance of harmful stereotypes when presenting information about diverse communities. This aligns with fundamental ethical principles in journalism and communication, which emphasize truthfulness, impartiality, and respect for individuals and groups. For an institution like the African University College of Communications, fostering a commitment to responsible and ethical communication is paramount. Therefore, an applicant demonstrating this understanding is more likely to succeed in their studies and contribute positively to the field. An approach that focuses solely on sensationalism or perpetuates stereotypes fails to meet ethical standards. Sensationalism prioritizes engagement over accuracy and can lead to misinformation. Perpetuating stereotypes is harmful, discriminatory, and undermines the principles of fairness and respect that are central to ethical communication. An approach that relies on anecdotal evidence without verification or context risks misrepresenting reality and can lead to biased conclusions, which is contrary to the rigorous standards expected in academic and professional communication. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a commitment to ethical principles. This includes a critical evaluation of information sources, a conscious effort to avoid bias and stereotypes, and a dedication to presenting information in a balanced and truthful manner. Professionals should always consider the potential impact of their communication on individuals and communities, and strive to uphold the highest standards of integrity and responsibility. Question 7. System analysis indicates that an applicant for the African University College of Communications entrance exam is preparing their application. They have completed some volunteer work related to media production, but are concerned that it might not be perceived as significant enough to impress the admissions committee. They are considering exaggerating the scope and impact of their volunteer role to make their application appear stronger. Which approach best aligns with the ethical and regulatory expectations for university entrance applications? Option A. Accurately describe the volunteer work, detailing the specific tasks performed and the actual outcomes, and focus on highlighting transferable skills gained, even if the role was modest. Option B. Omit any mention of the volunteer work entirely, as it is not a formal academic achievement and might detract from the application if not presented as highly impactful. Option C. Focus solely on academic achievements and downplay or ignore any non-academic experiences, including volunteer work, to present a purely academic profile. Option D. Inflate the responsibilities and achievements in the volunteer role to create a more compelling narrative that emphasizes leadership and significant project completion. The correct answer is A. Accurately describe the volunteer work, detailing the specific tasks performed and the actual outcomes, and focus on highlighting transferable skills gained, even if the role was modest. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the ethical considerations and regulatory expectations surrounding academic integrity, specifically in the context of university admissions. The African University College of Communications entrance exam aims to assess not only academic potential, but also the applicant's commitment to honesty and ethical conduct, which are foundational to academic and professional success. Misrepresenting qualifications or experience can lead to severe consequences, including disqualification from the admissions process and potential reputational damage. The correct approach involves an applicant truthfully and accurately presenting their academic history and any relevant experience, even if they perceive certain aspects as less impressive. This aligns with the core ethical principle of honesty and integrity, which is implicitly and often explicitly required by academic institutions. Regulatory frameworks governing university admissions, while not always codified in explicit legal statutes for entrance exams, are guided by principles of fairness, transparency, and the pursuit of academic excellence. By being truthful, the applicant upholds these principles and demonstrates a commitment to ethical behavior that is essential for a student at the African University College of Communications. An incorrect approach would be to embellish or fabricate experience to appear more qualified. This directly violates the ethical principle of honesty. Such misrepresentation undermines the integrity of the admissions process, creating an unfair advantage over other applicants who present their qualifications truthfully. It also suggests a lack of respect for the institution's standards and a willingness to engage in deceptive practices, which are antithetical to the values of academic and professional life. Another incorrect approach would be to omit relevant information that might be perceived as a weakness, such as a gap in education or a less than stellar performance in a particular subject. While not an outright fabrication, omission can be a form of deception. It prevents the admissions committee from making a fully informed decision based on a complete picture of the applicant's background. This failure to provide a comprehensive and transparent account is ethically questionable and can be seen as an attempt to manipulate the evaluation process. The professional decision-making process for applicants in such situations should involve a commitment to transparency and accuracy. Applicants should carefully review all application requirements and honestly reflect on their qualifications and experiences. If there are any doubts about how to present information, it is always best to err on the side of full disclosure and seek clarification from the admissions office if necessary. The focus should be on presenting one's genuine self and qualifications, trusting that the admissions committee will evaluate applicants based on their merits and potential. Question 8. Performance analysis shows that an applicant for the African University College of Communications entrance exam has listed extensive practical experience in digital marketing, including managing campaigns for several prominent local businesses. However, upon initial review, there is no readily available public record or verifiable third-party confirmation of these specific campaign involvements as described. What is the most appropriate next step for the admissions committee? Option A. Accept the applicant's explanation that their work was confidential and therefore not publicly verifiable without further investigation. Option B. Initiate a process to independently verify the applicant's claimed digital marketing experience, potentially by contacting the listed businesses or seeking professional references, and allow the applicant an opportunity to provide further substantiation if discrepancies arise. Option C. Immediately reject the application due to the lack of immediate public verification of the claimed experience. Option D. Proceed with the application as is, assuming the applicant's self-reported experience is accurate and sufficient for evaluation. The correct answer is B. Initiate a process to independently verify the applicant's claimed digital marketing experience, potentially by contacting the listed businesses or seeking professional references, and allow the applicant an opportunity to provide further substantiation if discrepancies arise. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the ethical considerations and regulatory expectations surrounding academic integrity within the context of university admissions. The African University College of Communications entrance exam, like many academic institutions, has a vested interest in ensuring that all applicants are evaluated fairly and that the integrity of the admissions process is maintained. Misrepresenting qualifications or experience, even if seemingly minor, undermines this integrity and can lead to unfair advantages for some applicants over others. Careful judgment is required to identify and address such misrepresentations appropriately, balancing the need for thoroughness with fairness to the applicant. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective verification of the applicant's stated qualifications and experience. This aligns with the fundamental principles of academic integrity and fair assessment, which are implicitly or explicitly governed by the examination's regulatory framework. By seeking independent verification, the admissions committee ensures that the information provided by the applicant is accurate and that the evaluation is based on genuine achievements. This upholds the university's standards and ensures that all applicants are assessed on a level playing field, preventing any undue advantage gained through falsified information. This approach is ethically sound as it promotes honesty and transparency in the admissions process. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking the discrepancy without further investigation is professionally unacceptable because it fails to uphold the standards of academic integrity. This inaction implicitly condones potential dishonesty and allows an applicant to benefit from misrepresented information, thereby compromising the fairness of the admissions process. It also risks admitting students who may not possess the foundational knowledge or skills they claim, potentially impacting their academic success and the reputation of the institution. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately disqualify the applicant without attempting to verify the information or giving them an opportunity to clarify, is also professionally flawed. While it addresses the potential for misrepresentation, it lacks due diligence and fairness. It assumes guilt without investigation and denies the applicant a chance to explain or rectify any unintentional errors. This approach can be seen as overly punitive and may violate principles of natural justice, which are often embedded within the broader ethical guidelines of academic institutions. A third incorrect approach, which is to accept the applicant's explanation at face value without any form of verification, is also problematic. While it demonstrates a degree of trust, it fails to adequately safeguard the integrity of the admissions process. Without independent verification, there is no assurance that the applicant's explanation is truthful, and the institution remains vulnerable to admitting individuals based on potentially false pretenses. This approach neglects the responsibility to ensure the accuracy of information used in critical decision-making. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, identify any discrepancies or potential misrepresentations in the application. Second, initiate a process of objective verification for the questionable information. Third, if verification is possible, allow the applicant an opportunity to provide clarification or evidence. Fourth, based on the verified information and any explanations provided, make a fair and informed decision that upholds the institution's standards and regulatory requirements. This process prioritizes accuracy, fairness, and ethical conduct. Question 9. Process analysis reveals that a prospective student who has applied for admission to the African University College of Communications has a strong interest in a particular specialized program. An academic advisor, seeking to provide tailored guidance, receives an informal inquiry from a current student in that program who claims to know the applicant well and offers to share insights into the applicant's academic background and potential fit. The advisor must decide how to proceed. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action, strictly adhering to the principles of academic integrity and institutional guidelines? Option A. Forward the current student's inquiry to the admissions office, requesting them to follow up with the current student for any relevant information they might have. Option B. Politely decline the current student's offer to share information, explaining that all applicant evaluations are handled through official admissions channels and that direct communication of this nature is not permitted. Option C. Accept the current student's offer and gather the informal insights, believing that this personal perspective will enhance the advisor's understanding of the applicant's potential. Option D. Contact the applicant directly and ask them to provide a personal reference from the current student who has offered to share information. The correct answer is B. Politely decline the current student's offer to share information, explaining that all applicant evaluations are handled through official admissions channels and that direct communication of this nature is not permitted. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The African University College of Communications, AUC, entrance exam, like many academic institutions, operates under guidelines that prioritize student privacy and data security. The challenge lies in discerning when and how to access or share information that might be perceived as helpful but could also violate these principles. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is both effective in supporting the applicant and compliant with AUC-established protocols. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to AUC-established communication channels and data access policies. This means that any request for information about an applicant's academic standing or suitability for the program must be channeled through official admissions or academic advising departments, who are authorized to access and disseminate such information in accordance with privacy regulations. This approach is correct because it upholds the principle of data confidentiality, which is a cornerstone of ethical academic administration and is likely embedded within AUC internal regulations and any applicable national data protection laws. It ensures that information is only shared with authorized personnel and for legitimate purposes, preventing potential misuse or breaches of privacy. An incorrect approach that involves directly contacting a faculty member for informal information about an applicant is ethically flawed because it bypasses established procedures. Faculty members are generally not authorized to release applicant information directly, and doing so could violate AUC privacy policies and potentially national data protection laws. This action undermines the integrity of the admissions process and exposes the university to risks associated with unauthorized data disclosure. Another incorrect approach, which is to assume the applicant's suitability based on informal conversations without verifying through official channels, is professionally unsound. This relies on subjective impressions rather than objective, verified data, which is contrary to fair and equitable admissions practices. It can lead to biased decisions and does not align with the structured and regulated nature of university admissions, which are designed to ensure a consistent and transparent evaluation process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of AUC internal policies regarding applicant information and data privacy. When faced with a request or a situation requiring information, a professional should first identify the authorized channels for obtaining and sharing such data. If unsure, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the relevant administrative department is crucial. The guiding principle should always be to act in a manner that is both helpful to the applicant and fully compliant with institutional regulations and ethical standards, prioritizing data security and privacy above all else. Question 10. Process analysis reveals that a faculty member preparing to review applications for a competitive communications program at African University College of Communications requests direct access to the personal contact information of all applicants who did not meet the initial screening criteria, stating it is for a personal research project on communication patterns. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the admissions office? Option A. Forward the request to the university's legal department for immediate action without any initial assessment of the request's legitimacy or potential for anonymized data sharing. Option B. Politely decline the request, explaining that applicant data is confidential and cannot be shared without explicit applicant consent or a formal, approved research protocol that outlines data anonymization. Option C. Share the contact information with the faculty member, but instruct them to only use it for the stated research purpose. Option D. Provide the faculty member with the requested applicant contact information, as they are a member of the university staff. The correct answer is D. Provide the faculty member with the requested applicant contact information, as they are a member of the university staff. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligation to protect sensitive data. The African University College of Communications entrance exam framework, while not explicitly detailed here, would implicitly adhere to principles of data privacy and academic integrity common in such institutions. Careful judgment is required to avoid both obstructing legitimate academic processes and violating privacy norms. The correct approach involves a structured inquiry that respects the privacy of applicants while fulfilling the exam board's need for information. This typically means seeking consent or relying on established protocols for data access within the institution. The regulatory and ethical justification lies in upholding the trust placed in the university to handle applicant data responsibly. This aligns with general principles of data protection and academic fairness, ensuring that information is accessed only for legitimate purposes and with appropriate authorization. An incorrect approach that immediately accesses applicant data without clear authorization or a defined process would be ethically unsound and potentially violate institutional policies or data protection guidelines. This failure stems from a disregard for privacy and due process. Another incorrect approach, which is to refuse to provide any information even when a legitimate academic need is demonstrated and can be met through authorized channels, is also professionally problematic. This can hinder necessary administrative functions and demonstrate a lack of cooperation, potentially violating implicit institutional expectations of support for academic processes. A third incorrect approach, which is to share the information broadly without considering who has a legitimate need to know, represents a significant breach of confidentiality and a violation of data privacy principles. Professionals in this context should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes 1. Understanding the request and its purpose. 2. Identifying relevant institutional policies and any applicable data protection regulations. 3. Determining the appropriate authorization required for data access. 4. Seeking consent where necessary. 5. Providing information only to authorized individuals for legitimate purposes. And 6. Documenting the process. This systematic approach ensures compliance, ethical conduct, and effective problem-solving. Question 11. Risk assessment procedures indicate that an applicant for the African University College of Communications entrance exam has inadvertently omitted a required supporting document from their online application submission. The applicant realizes this error after the initial submission, but before the final deadline. Which of the following actions best reflects adherence to the principles of academic integrity and the university's entrance examination guidelines? Option A. Attempt to upload the missing document to the application portal without notifying the admissions office, hoping it will be processed. Option B. Disregard the missing document and focus on preparing for the entrance exam, assuming the university will overlook the omission. Option C. Assume the omission is minor and will not affect the application, proceeding with the submission as is. Option D. Immediately contact the AUC admissions office to explain the oversight and inquire about the procedure for submitting the missing document. The correct answer is D. Immediately contact the AUC admissions office to explain the oversight and inquire about the procedure for submitting the missing document. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected of students at the African University College of Communications, AUC. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate response when faced with a situation that could compromise these principles, even if unintentionally. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between a minor oversight and a potentially serious breach. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification and guidance from the appropriate university authority. This demonstrates a commitment to upholding academic standards and a willingness to adhere to the established rules and regulations of AUC. Specifically, it aligns with the university's likely emphasis on honesty, integrity, and the importance of understanding and following submission guidelines. By consulting the admissions office, the applicant shows respect for the process and a desire to rectify any potential misunderstanding before submitting their application, thereby preventing any appearance of impropriety. An incorrect approach would be to assume that the omission is insignificant and proceed with the submission without seeking clarification. This fails to acknowledge the importance of adhering to all stated requirements, however minor they may seem. It suggests a lack of diligence and an unwillingness to engage with the university's established procedures, potentially leading to the rejection of the application or disciplinary action if discovered later. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to submit the missing document without informing the admissions office. This could be interpreted as an attempt to circumvent the established process or to mislead the admissions committee. It undermines the principles of transparency and honesty that are fundamental to academic integrity. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to disregard the missing document entirely and hope it goes unnoticed. This demonstrates a clear lack of respect for the application process and the university standards. It is a passive and irresponsible stance that could have severe consequences for the applicant's chances of admission. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a clear understanding of the institution's values and regulations. Applicants should always err on the side of caution, proactively seeking clarification when in doubt about any aspect of an application or academic requirement. This proactive communication builds trust and demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct. Question 12. The performance metrics show a significant increase in applicant engagement with the university's online prospectus and a rise in the number of inquiries regarding specific communication programs. However, the overall acceptance rate has seen a slight decrease due to stricter admission criteria implemented this academic year. Which approach best reflects responsible communication to prospective students regarding these trends? Option A. Emphasize the increased interest in the prospectus and specific programs, highlighting the university's growing appeal, while briefly mentioning that admission criteria have been refined to ensure academic quality. Option B. Highlight the decrease in acceptance rate as a sign of the university's exclusivity and high standards, while downplaying the engagement metrics. Option C. Focus exclusively on the growing applicant engagement and program inquiries, presenting them as definitive indicators of the university's enhanced reputation and desirability. Option D. Announce a general improvement in university standing based on applicant interest, without detailing specific metrics or mentioning any changes to admission criteria. The correct answer is A. Emphasize the increased interest in the prospectus and specific programs, highlighting the university's growing appeal, while briefly mentioning that admission criteria have been refined to ensure academic quality. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need to communicate important information about the university's performance with the ethical obligation to ensure that such information is presented accurately and without misleading implications. The African University College of Communications entrance exam framework emphasizes transparency and integrity in all communications, particularly those that might influence prospective students or stakeholders. Careful judgment is required to avoid overstating achievements or creating unrealistic expectations. The correct approach involves presenting a balanced overview of performance metrics, acknowledging both strengths and areas for development. This aligns with the ethical principles of honesty and fairness, ensuring that prospective students receive a realistic picture of the university. Specifically, referencing the university's internal communication guidelines and the broader ethical standards expected of educational institutions, this approach upholds the principle of providing truthful and comprehensive information. It avoids sensationalism and focuses on data-driven insights that are verifiable and contextualized. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on positive metrics without acknowledging challenges would be misleading. This violates the ethical duty to be truthful and could lead prospective students to make decisions based on incomplete or exaggerated information. Such an approach could also contravene internal university policies on reporting and external communication standards that mandate accuracy and completeness. Another incorrect approach that selectively highlights metrics without context or uses vague language to imply success where data is inconclusive is also professionally unacceptable. This can be seen as a form of misrepresentation, undermining trust and potentially violating guidelines that require clear and unambiguous communication. It fails to meet the standard of providing a fair and accurate representation of the university's standing. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough review of all available performance data, consultation with relevant departments, e.g., admissions, academic affairs, and adherence to established university communication protocols. Professionals should ask, is the information presented truthful and verifiable? Does it provide a complete picture, or is it selectively chosen to create a favorable impression? Does it align with the university's stated values and ethical commitments? This systematic evaluation ensures that communications are both informative and ethically sound. Question 13. The evaluation methodology shows that the admissions committee is reviewing an application for the African University College of Communications entrance exam. The candidate's parent is a prominent alumnus and a significant donor to the university. The committee is aware of this affiliation and is considering how it might influence their review process to ensure fairness and adherence to AUC regulations. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for the African University College of Communications entrance exam? Option A. Inform the candidate's parent that their affiliation might create a conflict of interest and suggest the candidate withdraw their application to avoid any perception of impropriety. Option B. Conduct a thorough and objective evaluation of the candidate's academic record and entrance exam performance, strictly adhering to the established AUC admissions criteria without any consideration of the parent's affiliation. Option C. Focus the evaluation primarily on the candidate's potential to benefit the university through their family's network and influence, rather than solely on their academic merit. Option D. Discreetly give the candidate's application slightly more favorable consideration, to acknowledge the family's long-standing support and potential future contributions to the university. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough and objective evaluation of the candidate's academic record and entrance exam performance, strictly adhering to the established AUC admissions criteria, without any consideration of the parent's affiliation. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide a fair and transparent admissions process. The admissions committee must adhere strictly to the African University College of Communications, AUC, entrance exam regulations, which prioritize objective assessment and prohibit any form of undue influence or bias. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting and applying these regulations to a situation where a candidate's family has a vested interest in the outcome. The correct approach involves a rigorous and impartial evaluation of the candidate's application, strictly based on the established AUC entrance exam criteria. This means focusing solely on the candidate's academic record, entrance exam scores, and any other objective measures outlined in the AUC admissions policy. This approach is correct because it upholds the principle of meritocracy, ensuring that all candidates are judged by the same standards, as mandated by the AUC commitment to fair and equitable admissions. It prevents any perception of favoritism or compromise of the exam's integrity, which is paramount for maintaining the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. An incorrect approach would be to allow the family's influence to sway the evaluation process. This could manifest as giving undue weight to the family's connections or making concessions not afforded to other candidates. Such an approach would be a direct violation of the AUC entrance exam regulations, which implicitly and explicitly demand impartiality. It would undermine the fairness of the admissions process, potentially leading to the admission of less qualified candidates over more deserving ones. This creates an ethical failure by compromising the integrity of the selection process and a regulatory failure by not adhering to the spirit and letter of the AUC admissions framework. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the candidate outright due to the family's affiliation without a thorough and objective review of their qualifications. While it is crucial to avoid bias, outright dismissal based on association, rather than merit, also fails to adhere to the AUC requirement for a comprehensive and fair assessment of all applicants. This approach risks being perceived as discriminatory and fails to uphold the principle of evaluating each candidate on their own merits, according to the defined criteria. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the AUC admissions regulations and ethical guidelines. Professionals must first identify any potential conflicts of interest or undue influence. Then, they must commit to an objective evaluation process, relying solely on the predefined criteria and documentation. if there is any doubt about maintaining impartiality. Seeking guidance from a supervisor or the admissions committee chair is essential. The ultimate goal is to ensure that every decision is defensible, transparent, and aligned with the university's commitment to academic excellence and fairness. Question 14. Investigation of a discrepancy in an applicant's submitted academic transcripts, where the stated grade point average appears significantly higher than the individual course grades would suggest, requires a careful and regulated response from the admissions officer at the African University College of Communications. The officer has identified this anomaly during the standard document review process. Option A. Accept the applicant's verbal explanation for the discrepancy without requesting any supporting documentation or further investigation. Option B. Proceed with admitting the applicant, noting the discrepancy for potential future review by the academic board. Option C. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to the unverified discrepancy in their academic record. Option D. Initiate a formal inquiry process to verify the discrepancy, potentially requesting clarification or additional documentation from the applicant, and consulting the admissions committee if necessary. The correct answer is B. Proceed with admitting the applicant, noting the discrepancy for potential future review by the academic board. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing admissions and ensuring a fair process for all applicants. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to overlook irregularities, but adherence to established university regulations and ethical standards is paramount. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine errors and deliberate attempts to circumvent the admission process. The correct approach involves a systematic review of all submitted documents, cross-referencing information where possible, and escalating any discrepancies to the designated admissions committee or relevant authority for a formal decision. This aligns with the African University College of Communications' stated commitment to transparency and fairness in its admissions process, as outlined in its official admissions policy. This policy implicitly requires due diligence in verifying applicant qualifications and adherence to all stated entry requirements. By following this procedure, the admissions officer upholds the integrity of the university's academic standards and ensures that all applicants are evaluated based on the same criteria, preventing potential future academic challenges for admitted students and maintaining the institution's reputation. An approach that involves accepting the applicant's explanation without further verification is incorrect because it bypasses the university's established procedures for handling discrepancies. This failure to conduct due diligence undermines the admissions policy and could lead to the admission of unqualified students, potentially impacting academic standards and the university's reputation. It also sets a precedent for leniency that could be exploited by future applicants. Another incorrect approach is to immediately reject the applicant based on the discrepancy without allowing for an explanation or further investigation. While adherence to rules is important, the university's policy likely includes provisions for addressing minor errors or misunderstandings. This rigid approach fails to consider the possibility of genuine mistakes and may unfairly penalize an otherwise qualified applicant, potentially leading to a loss of valuable talent for the university. A third incorrect approach, which is to admit the applicant but flag the issue for future review without immediate action, is also professionally unsound. While it addresses the immediate enrollment pressure, it leaves the integrity of the current admission process compromised. The discrepancy remains unaddressed, potentially allowing an unqualified student to proceed, and it does not provide a clear resolution or learning opportunity for the applicant or the admissions team. This approach lacks the decisive action required to maintain the credibility of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding and adhering to all university admission policies and regulations. 2. Conducting thorough verification of all submitted documents. 3. Identifying and documenting any discrepancies. 4. Seeking clarification or explanation from the applicant in a professional and non-accusatory manner. 5. Escalating unresolved discrepancies to the appropriate authority or committee for a fair and impartial decision. 6. Documenting the entire process and the final decision. Question 15. The control framework reveals that the African University College of Communications (AUC) Admissions Committee has received an application from a candidate who has submitted all required academic transcripts and test scores. Alongside these documents, the committee has received a strong recommendation letter from a well-respected public figure who is not affiliated with AUC. The committee is tasked with ensuring that all admissions decisions are made fairly and objectively, based solely on the applicant's qualifications and potential to succeed at AUC, as outlined in the university's published admission guidelines. How should the admissions committee proceed with evaluating this application? Option A. The admissions committee should disregard the recommendation letter entirely as it comes from an external source and could introduce bias, focusing only on the applicant's direct submissions. Option B. The admissions committee should thoroughly review the applicant's academic transcripts, test scores, and other submitted materials against the established AUC admission criteria, giving the recommendation letter due consideration as supplementary information, but not allowing it to override objective assessment. Option C. The admissions committee should contact the recommender directly to seek further informal clarification on the applicant's suitability beyond what is stated in the letter, to gauge the recommender's influence. Option D. The admissions committee should grant the applicant preferential consideration for admission due to the prominence of the recommender, assuming the recommendation signifies exceptional potential. The correct answer is B. The admissions committee should thoroughly review the applicant's academic transcripts, test scores, and other submitted materials against the established AUC admission criteria, giving the recommendation letter due consideration as supplementary information, but not allowing it to override objective assessment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing student admissions and the potential for external influence. The admissions committee must navigate the delicate balance between upholding the rigorous standards expected of a reputable institution like African University College of Communications (AUC) and responding to a request that, while seemingly benign, could compromise the fairness and objectivity of the admissions process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all applicants are evaluated solely on their merits, in accordance with AUC stated admission policies and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves the admissions committee meticulously reviewing the applicant's submitted materials against the established AUC admission criteria, without giving undue weight to the recommendation letter. This approach upholds the principle of merit-based selection, which is fundamental to academic integrity and fair competition. By adhering strictly to the published admission requirements and evaluating all applicants consistently, the committee ensures that the admissions process is transparent, objective, and free from bias or undue influence, thereby safeguarding the reputation and academic standards of AUC. This aligns with the ethical imperative to treat all applicants equitably and to make decisions based on demonstrable qualifications. An incorrect approach would be to automatically grant the applicant preferential consideration solely based on the recommendation letter from a prominent figure. This fails to uphold the principle of meritocracy and introduces an element of favoritism, potentially disadvantaging more qualified candidates who did not have such connections. This approach violates the ethical obligation of fairness and could lead to the admission of students who do not meet the academic standards, thereby undermining the quality of education at AUC. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant outright without a thorough review of their qualifications, simply because the recommendation letter came from an external source. This is also professionally unacceptable, as it fails to give every applicant a fair chance and demonstrates a lack of due diligence in the admissions process. It also ignores the possibility that the applicant may indeed be highly qualified, and the recommendation, while external, might be genuine and supportive of their academic potential. A further incorrect approach would be to seek further informal assurances, or to engage in discussions with the recommender about the applicant's suitability outside of the formal review process. This circumvents the established procedures and opens the door to potential manipulation or the perception of impropriety, compromising the integrity of the admissions committee's decision-making. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear adherence to established institutional policies and ethical guidelines. Professionals must first identify the core principles at stake, such as fairness, objectivity, and academic integrity. They should then consult relevant university regulations and admission criteria. The process should involve a systematic evaluation of all applicants based on these criteria, ensuring that any external information is considered within the established framework and does not override objective assessment. Transparency and documentation of the decision-making process are also crucial to maintain accountability and trust. Question 16. Operational review demonstrates that the admissions office has drafted a new brochure for prospective students highlighting the Bachelor of Arts in Communications program. The draft includes claims about a guaranteed internship placement and cutting-edge curriculum developed by industry leaders. However, the faculty responsible for the program has not yet finalized the curriculum details for the upcoming academic year, and the internship placement process is competitive and not guaranteed for all students. The admissions office is eager to distribute these brochures before the upcoming recruitment fair. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the African University College of Communications? Option A. Proceed with distributing the brochure, but instruct the admissions office to verbally inform students at the recruitment fair that some information may not be entirely accurate. Option B. Revise the brochure to emphasize the visual design and general appeal of the program, downplaying specific claims about internships and curriculum until final details are confirmed. Option C. Immediately halt distribution of the brochure and initiate a collaborative review process with the relevant academic departments to verify and revise all claims before dissemination. Option D. Distribute the brochure as drafted to capitalize on the recruitment fair's momentum, with a note to students that details are subject to change. The correct answer is D. Distribute the brochure as drafted to capitalize on the recruitment fair's momentum, with a note to students that details are subject to change. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for timely communication with prospective students against the ethical obligation to ensure the accuracy and appropriateness of promotional materials. Misleading information, even if unintentional, can have significant consequences for both the students and the institution's reputation. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing interests. The correct approach involves a thorough review and verification process by the relevant academic and administrative departments before any promotional materials are disseminated. This ensures that all claims made about programs, faculty, and admission requirements are accurate and reflect the current offerings and standards of the African University College of Communications. This aligns with the ethical principle of honesty and transparency in all institutional communications, as well as any implicit or explicit guidelines governing university admissions and marketing within the specified regulatory framework for the African University College of Communications entrance exam, which would prioritize truthful representation to prospective students. An incorrect approach of immediately approving the materials without verification fails to uphold the principle of accuracy. This could lead to students making enrollment decisions based on false pretenses, creating potential academic or financial hardship for them and reputational damage for the university. Another incorrect approach of delaying dissemination indefinitely due to minor stylistic concerns, without addressing substantive accuracy issues, would hinder the university's ability to recruit effectively and could be seen as inefficient or unresponsive, potentially violating internal operational guidelines for admissions marketing. Finally, an approach that focuses solely on the visual appeal of the materials, neglecting the factual content, demonstrates a disregard for the core purpose of promotional materials to inform prospective students accurately about educational opportunities. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes accuracy and ethical communication. This involves establishing clear internal review processes for all external communications, ensuring that content is fact-checked against official university records and policies. When in doubt, seeking clarification from subject matter experts within the university is crucial. The goal is to produce materials that are both appealing and, most importantly, truthful and informative, thereby protecting the interests of prospective students and the integrity of the institution. Question 17. When evaluating a student's request for assistance with an assignment due to personal hardship, and you are a faculty member at the African University College of Communications, what is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action to uphold academic integrity while offering appropriate support? Option A. Provide the student with direct answers or solutions to the assignment to help them pass. Option B. Ignore the student's request for help, citing a lack of time and potential policy complications. Option C. Grant the student an immediate extension on the assignment without consulting departmental policy or informing other students. Option D. Acknowledge the student's difficulties and guide them towards university academic support services and explore documented procedures for extensions or alternative assessments, if applicable and approved by the relevant authorities. The correct answer is A. Provide the student with direct answers or solutions to the assignment to help them pass. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate needs of a student with the established academic integrity policies of the African University College of Communications (AUC). The pressure to assist a struggling student, especially one facing personal hardship, can create a conflict between empathy and adherence to rules designed to ensure fair assessment and the value of the qualification. Careful judgment is required to navigate this ethical tightrope without compromising institutional standards or unfairly disadvantaging other students. The correct approach involves a commitment to upholding academic integrity while exploring permissible avenues of support. This means acknowledging the student's difficulties and offering assistance within the established framework of university policies. This might include directing the student to academic support services, discussing available extensions or alternative assessment methods if permitted by the course convener and documented policy, and ensuring any adjustments are applied equitably. This approach is ethically justified by the AUC commitment to fairness, transparency, and the academic rigor of its programs. It respects the student's situation without resorting to actions that undermine the integrity of the assessment process or the credibility of the institution. An incorrect approach that involves providing the student with direct answers or solutions to the assignment fails to uphold academic integrity. This action constitutes academic dishonesty, violating AUC policies against plagiarism and cheating. It not only unfairly advantages the student, but also devalues the learning process and the qualifications awarded by the university. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the student's plea for help due to fear of repercussions, is also professionally deficient. While it avoids direct violation of academic integrity rules, it fails to demonstrate professional responsibility and a commitment to student welfare, which are often implicit expectations within an educational institution. A third incorrect approach, which is to grant an extension without proper consultation or adherence to documented procedures, could lead to inconsistencies in grading and unfairness to other students who met the original deadline. This undermines the principle of equitable treatment and can create a precedent for circumventing established policies. Professionals in an academic setting should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to institutional policies. This involves first understanding the specific policies and guidelines relevant to the situation, such as those pertaining to academic integrity, student support, and assessment procedures at AUC. Next, they should assess the student's situation objectively, identifying the nature of the difficulty and the potential impact on their academic performance. Then, they should explore all available and permissible avenues for support, consulting with relevant university departments or supervisors if necessary. Finally, decisions should be made and communicated transparently, ensuring that all actions are justifiable under the university's regulatory framework and ethical standards. Question 18. Governance review demonstrates that a candidate for the African University College of Communications entrance exam may have received unauthorized assistance during the examination. The university's internal regulations for the entrance exam clearly outline prohibited conduct and the disciplinary process for violations. What is the most appropriate course of action for the university administration? Option A. Advise the candidate that such actions are unacceptable and issue a warning without further investigation, assuming the report is accurate. Option B. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged misconduct, gathering all relevant evidence and providing the candidate an opportunity to present their case before making a determination based on the entrance exam regulations. Option C. Forward the report to an external regulatory body for their judgment and action, as the university administration is not equipped to handle such matters. Option D. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the entrance exam and deny admission based on the initial report of unauthorized assistance. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged misconduct, gathering all relevant evidence and providing the candidate an opportunity to present their case before making a determination based on the entrance exam regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address potential breaches of its own regulations. The challenge lies in interpreting the scope and application of the African University College of Communications entrance exam regulations, particularly concerning the use of external assistance during the examination period. A governance review highlighting potential irregularities necessitates a structured and compliant response. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation that adheres strictly to the established examination regulations and the university's internal disciplinary procedures. This means gathering evidence, providing the student with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based solely on the defined rules and evidence. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant as it upholds fairness, due process, and the integrity of the examination process as mandated by the African University College of Communications entrance exam framework. It ensures that any disciplinary action is justified and proportionate to the proven infraction. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the student based on the initial report without a formal investigation. This fails to provide the student with due process, a fundamental principle of fairness and regulatory compliance. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the governance review's findings, thereby failing to uphold the university's responsibility to maintain academic standards and potentially violating its own internal governance policies. A third incorrect approach would be to apply penalties not explicitly outlined in the examination regulation, which would be a clear breach of the established framework and could lead to appeals and reputational damage. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the specific regulations governing the examination. They must then follow a defined investigative process, ensuring all parties have a chance to be heard, and base their decisions on documented evidence and the established rules. This systematic approach minimizes bias and ensures compliance with the African University College of Communications entrance exams regulatory framework. Question 19. Analysis of a situation where an admissions officer at the African University College of Communications, AUC, believes that reviewing past applicant performance data, including their submitted essays and interview notes, could help identify common weaknesses in the current entrance exam. The officer considers accessing this data without explicit permission from the AUC data protection officer, believing it will lead to a more effective exam in the future. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action according to AUC regulatory framework and Ghanaian data protection guidelines? Option A. Access the applicant data discreetly and use it to inform exam improvements, ensuring no individual applicant is identifiable in the final recommendations. Option B. Proceed with accessing the data, arguing that the benefit of improving the exam outweighs the minor privacy concern. Option C. Share the perceived weaknesses of the current exam with colleagues in informal discussions, without referencing specific applicant data. Option D. Immediately seek formal authorization from the AUC data protection officer to access and analyze the applicant data for the purpose of exam improvement. The correct answer is A. Access the applicant data discreetly and use it to inform exam improvements, ensuring no individual applicant is identifiable in the final recommendations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to balance the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The African University College of Communications, AUC, entrance exam, like many academic institutions, operates under specific guidelines regarding data privacy and the responsible handling of applicant information. The challenge lies in discerning when and how to access or utilize such information without violating established protocols. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of AUC internal policies and relevant Ghanaian data protection laws. This approach prioritizes obtaining explicit authorization before accessing or using any applicant data, even for seemingly benign purposes like improving the exam process. This aligns with the ethical principle of respecting privacy and the regulatory requirement to handle personal data lawfully and transparently. By seeking permission, the individual demonstrates adherence to the university's governance framework and avoids potential breaches of confidentiality. An incorrect approach that involves accessing applicant data without authorization, even with the intention of improving the exam, constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action directly violates principles of data privacy and confidentiality, potentially contravening Ghanaian data protection legislation. Such unauthorized access erodes trust and can lead to severe consequences, including disciplinary action and reputational damage for both the individual and OC. Another incorrect approach, which involves sharing applicant data with unauthorized individuals, is an even more egregious breach. This not only violates privacy, but also exposes the university to legal liabilities and undermines the integrity of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process in such situations should begin with a clear understanding of the university's data handling policies and applicable laws. When faced with a need to access or utilize applicant data, the first step is always to determine if authorization is required. If it is, the professional must seek and obtain that authorization through the proper channels. If authorization cannot be obtained or if the request falls outside policy, the professional must explore alternative, compliant methods to achieve their objective. Transparency and adherence to established protocols are paramount in maintaining ethical standards and regulatory compliance. Question 20. Quality control measures reveal that an admissions officer, who is a close associate of a senior faculty member, may have improperly influenced the scoring of entrance exam scripts for a particular candidate. The university's internal regulations stipulate a clear process for handling allegations of academic misconduct and breaches of professional ethics. What is the most appropriate course of action for the university administration to take in response to this revelation? Option A. Advise the senior faculty member to speak with the admissions officer to resolve the matter informally, given their relationship. Option B. Immediately dismiss the admissions officer and reevaluate the candidate's application based on the alleged impropriety. Option C. File the report away without further action to avoid potential internal conflict and protect the university's reputation from negative publicity. Option D. Initiate a formal, impartial investigation into the allegations, following the university's established procedures for misconduct, and ensure all parties are given an opportunity to be heard. The correct answer is B. Immediately dismiss the admissions officer and reevaluate the candidate's application based on the alleged impropriety. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address potential breaches of ethical conduct by its staff. The entrance exam process is a critical gateway, and any compromise in its fairness or integrity can have long-term repercussions on the university's reputation and the quality of its student body. Careful judgment is required to ensure that investigations are thorough, fair, and adhere to the established regulatory framework of the African University College of Communications. The correct approach involves initiating a formal, documented investigation process that is impartial and adheres to the university's internal regulations and any relevant national educational guidelines. This approach ensures that all allegations are treated seriously, evidence is gathered systematically, and a fair hearing is provided to all parties involved. This aligns with the principles of due process and upholds the university's commitment to transparency and accountability, which are implicitly expected within any educational institution's operational framework. An incorrect approach that involves immediate dismissal without a thorough investigation fails to uphold due process and could lead to legal challenges or damage to staff morale. This bypasses the established procedures for handling misconduct and can be seen as arbitrary. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the allegations due to the sensitive nature of the individuals involved, directly violates the university's responsibility to maintain academic standards and ethical conduct. This inaction creates a precedent for future misconduct and undermines the integrity of the admissions process. A third incorrect approach, which is to conduct a superficial, informal inquiry without proper documentation, risks overlooking crucial evidence, leading to an unfair outcome, and failing to establish a clear record of the investigation, which is essential for accountability and future reference. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and procedures. This involves 1. Acknowledging the report and initiating a preliminary assessment to determine the validity of the allegations. 2. Following the university's established disciplinary procedures, which typically include notification of the accused, evidence gathering, and an opportunity for the accused to respond. 3. Ensuring impartiality and confidentiality throughout the process. 4. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made. 5. Reaching a conclusion based on the evidence and university regulations, and implementing appropriate sanctions or resolutions.